Okay, we're recording now. So we've already started. I didn't realize we should have been recording this. Don, do you want to just have a quick explanation of?
So this paper that I'm talking about is one that I've written with some colleagues in South Africa, Ireland, and the US, and we've found similarities between the problems that we face in terms of incoming students. We're looking at the use of diagnostic tests to help students who are coming into the university to be ready for what they need to take on the university courses. And we're talking about adaptive diagnostic tests, which basically adapt to the users. So instead of asking a student every question in the test, if we can infer that a student understands some concept, then we don't ask them questions on that. If we can infer that they don't understand it, we also don't ask them questions on that. So it's only the unknown areas. And this leads us to this personal, individual identification of knowledge gaps, because we can identify exactly where the student is in terms of the knowledge map.
Don, can I ask?
Yeah.
Knowledge maps, do they address the issue of consistency? Because what I found, Rod, in second year complex is I'm sure all the students know how to solve quadratics, but they don't get them right every single time.
No, I guess it doesn't, because you're kind of basing it on one question, one or two questions each time.
Okay.
So you're really looking at overall, where is the student's knowledge in the area? The consistency one is a good question. I don't know how possibly with a mastery test you could do something with that, which is maybe a talk for a discussion for another day.
Thanks.
That's all right. It can lead to tailored learning paths, because once you have this idea of where the students are in terms of their knowledge, you can develop an individual learning path. And one of the things that I might talk about later that we're thinking of trying to do is
I have Teams off. I don't know why I'm
Okay,
saying that.
me, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Is to look at how we might put some AI on top of this to develop somebody's having a good chat, to help students develop their skills. And the third thing is that you collect an awful lot of data about how students are performing, and that can be used to, as it says, empower educators with insights, design interventions and support strategies. And Alison, particularly in the US, who's been doing this for nearly 20 years, has a massive knowledge of and data of students. Anyway, and there's some references there that this technology is showing potential. Apart from the four of us, I know it's being used in a couple of other places around the world. And I've gone on to the wrong presentation. It's the second one that I was going to give. Let me come back to this. Sorry. Now I've got to get that out of the way. This is some future stuff that we're talking about, which I was going to talk about at the end anyway.
Yeah. While we're here,
Exit teams. Yeah, where the hell is it?
You right click on the icon.
There. Yeah. Oh, come on.
This should be just change
Cool.
just quit teams at the very top level.
Thank you. Okay, so let's try this one, which is saying in some sense the same things. It's just, why do things never work when you're in a hurry and stressed? Full screen, right?
Is this one also made with Gamma?
Yes, yeah. So this one was with the paper. The other one was, we put together a couple of page sort of next steps from this paper, and yeah, I did the same thing with Gamma, and it's generated that. So this is talking about the first few things that are talking about the same things. the mathematical preparedness. Also the fact that in Australia at the minute, the government has this policy that by 2050, they want 80% of people to have a degree. That's their latest idea, which is part of the reason that we're leading this gateway students.
Is that a degree or any tertiary?
Well, that's
TAFE
tertiary.
level?
That's, I'm not sure if it's TAFE level, but it's certainly tertiary. I thought it was degree
I hope not, because it makes more sense if it's tertiary, because you still need the plumbers and the.
yeah, well, that's what I reckon. And I
Qualified
think
technicians.
the 80% is crazy, but
Yeah. Not to say that they couldn't be used, because there's still a lot of maths. I mean, this talk can
Yeah.
still be used for those courses as
Yeah.
well, those TAFE.
yeah, I mean,
courses.
this idea of diagnostic testing kind of works at any level.
Mm.
So, yeah, this delves more into what I want to talk about. So the things that we need to do is one, measure the preparedness. What does mathematically prepared mean anyway? Where do we want our students to be? How much learning loss do students have between high school and entering university? And how can we overcome that? And again, that's by identifying what those losses are. Developing more equitable access rather than inequitable. So this is probably more true of the American situation, where the wealthier school districts have considerably better education standards than the less wealthy ones. And also this fact of over-reliance on calculators and AI these days, which is leading to passive learning that Mary was talking about, or avoiding this in her talk this morning. So the solution is this adaptive diagnostic testing, which, if it's set up right, gives us an accurate picture of what the students understand. And that picture there is a part of the knowledge map that I put together for the diagnostic test that we're trialling here. If anyone wants to see more about that, I'm happy to discuss it. Joshua and I are working on another one for Math 1011. This gives rise to personalised plans, because we can identify where the students are having problems, and if they're better prepared for their first maths course, then that, in theory at least, leads to better outcomes. Again, in the American situation, they actually use the diagnostic test for placement. So students have to achieve certain levels in the diagnostic test to get into certain first year courses. As I said, this adaptive diagnostic test has been used in University of Illinois for, I think, nearly 20 years now, and 180,000 students, and the numbers on another slide. So there's certainly been proven benefits there of improved student success, getting the students into the right course, which they pass, which then, once they start improving, that tends to be a positive feedback. It's, at least in the Illinois case, led to higher retention. Again, because students don't fail, they don't want to drop out. Allowing early placement, and so better timetabling. And the data's also been used to enhance research and develop these programs further. And we've also done a little bit of that here, starting with the diagnostic test that we're trialing here.
So Don, with this with the I guess data that's coming out of U of I, so does that I guess this is kind of a follow-up question to David's question of like, is it matching what you're like, are the outcomes on the diagnostic test kind of matching what was expected, or like, is it sometimes the students are doing better than the diagnostic test would maybe?
I think in case of the one at U of I, the data is very much on point, and Alison's done a lot of work following these ideas through. So their diagnostic test, they identify topic by topic, and they'll identify which topics students have problems with coming in, and then by doing further testing as they go through, they can see where those topics are picked up in which subjects. And there's been she's got quite a bit of research on that, and following through how students pick things up, which topics need to be taught, because if students already know the topic when they come in, there's no need to, if all the students know it, then there's not really any need to include it in the course.
Mm.
And if there are things that they don't, then you need to spend more time on that. So
Mm.
the researchers has certainly fed into that.
Mm.
So as I said, this paper is looking at our 4 universities, which are, well, slightly different sizes. They're all fairly prestigious universities in terms of world rankings. And we're all using a slightly different process, but essentially looking at the same thing. So in Illinois, they're using a system called ALEX PPL, which is adaptive learning, education, knowledge, skills, placement, preparation, and knowledge, something along those lines. It came out of some work on knowledge spaces, which Alison then, somebody developed this adaptive testing process, not for maths, but just as a general process. And Alison jumped onto it and did a lot of work developing this ALEX system, which I think McGraw-Hill we were pushing commercially, maybe still do. And it provides individual learning reports for the students. So in their case, the students will get a report. They can then, which points them to particular resources that they need to follow up with. And then as long as they've spent a certain amount of time studying those resources, they can retake the test. So it's also being used in a way as a developmental tool. Mm-hmm. So it gives them the personalised learning plans. They've enforced the placement policy, so the students have to reach certain levels in order to reach, if they want to have entry into the higher maths units in first year. And it's given them data for research. And as you said, there are 150,000 students. I think it's now more like 180,000 this year have taken the test at Illinois, and it's now being used by 250 universities across Europe, the US. And as I mentioned before, because the US likes this national curriculum, having something like this is essential to place students accurately and successfully.
Don?
Yeah.
Do you want questions?
Yeah, no, bring them on.
Well, what about the Common Core, the NCT and Common Cores? Is that an approach, a step towards that?
Well, I think I think it's a trial towards that, but the
Right.
implementation is at a local level.
Yeah.
Like education in the US is a local government problem, and whilst there's state and national education structures, everything that happens is at the local level, and it depends very much on how much money that local authority has, what they can teach.
Yeah, it's kind of even this is on the level of public schools that there's already inequalities among the public schools, so it really depends which district you live in, of which school you go to, and how well equipped that school will be, which I think is that's kind of like surprising, maybe not coming from the US.
Yeah, well, I've done several trips over there, so I know what the system is, and yes, it's certainly not like we have. University College Dublin has implemented this Maths Fit, which is again a numbers-based test, and does fairly similar things. It provides automated feedback, giving the student an idea of what where their holes are. They have a refresher course which the students can then take before university starts. They have the benefit, as does Illinois, of being able to give these tests from some months before the students start university. The ones for Illinois start, I think, in about, they're able to take them from about May, and university starts about now, so September. So then also University College UCD has a mathematics support centre, which students can also be directed to get additional support. The other issue that Ireland's had is that they give bonus points for students who attempt higher maths at the matriculation at the equivalent to the HSC level, which has prompted students to take higher maths. They get the bonus points, but they can't do the maths. So, they've got that issue to contend with.
So they get the points even if they don't pass, or?
Yeah,
or-
they get bonus points for attempting the higher course. So it's so it causes issues there. Our approaches, well, the approach here at UNSW is we thought, and UCT are still emerging. We're still developing a test here in conjunction with the numeracy working group. I've been working for the last 18 months, 12 months, 18, however long I've been here, on a diagnostic test, which Jonathan had also flagged for first year maths, but there's also business and med science and a few other people that want something similar. So we're looking at developing something, possibly a tailored test for each of those faculties, because the maths requirements aren't quite the same for each faculty. And we're also doing some work with policy development on being able to direct students to particular courses. UCT has national benchmark tests, but they're still looking at trialing diagnostic tests, particularly for international students, and that's also an issue for all of the other places as well, because even if we know what our New South Wales students have done, students are coming from all over the world and have totally different requirements. So looking at what is it that makes a successful test, these are the points that have come out of our discussion. Firstly, of course, it's got to be valid and reliable, which is something that testing of it and the research will help, and that's what we're at the point that we're looking at here at the moment. It needs to fit with institutional policies. It's no good of running the test if the institution isn't going to support it and everyone isn't going to support it, and the objectives and the infrastructure is there.
Sorry, can I ask a question about that actually? Like I sort of talked a bit with Laura about the diagnostic test for here, and there was kind of apparently some institutional pushback or something that making the students take this test would make them feel bad if they weren't ready or something. Like I heard something along these lines, that this was the opinion of the university. Is that something that you had to take into account?
Well, I haven't really heard that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it may be. I'm sure that there are people who would look at it that way, and I think part of that then comes down to the stakeholder buy-in and selling it to the students as being something that's going to help their studies, not something that they'll fail, but something that will help them to be enrolled into the right course in first year, so that they can get through that and then succeed in their second course, not have to do their first course 11 times before get into something that they're just not capable of.
Yeah, I think that's much better. It's a selection tool to say this is the most appropriate for you at your level, rather than you fail to get into this course. So it's the way it's done.
And I mean, I think that's how I would read it as well. But I guess what I heard was that that's not the university's opinion. So
it needs to be sold to them.
Exactly.
I think we're getting some buy-in from senior management. Certainly, we've been talking to a few of the PVCs and DVC, and they seem to be buying into this idea of using this and then having the support to help students. So,
right. As long as it comes with the follow-up.
As long as it comes with the follow-up, and students then have the option. I mean, here we're not going to force students the way they do in the US to enroll in a particular course. If they want to do maths 1141 and fail, then they can do it. But we can very clearly tell them that they probably shouldn't. So that also goes with the university policies and having structured support intervention. So in the development here of this test, we're also looking at expanding the Maths and Stats Support Centre so that it's available more widely than just to students in the school, and developing online resources which would then fit into the diagnostic test. having this done in a timely fashion is also something that's important, and something which is probably difficult here because of the way the offers are made. You know, if we don't give students an offer to the university until 2 weeks before university starts, or until week 1, it's very difficult to have them do a diagnostic test, but it would probably still be a good way to do it. Having the targeted support is also something that's essential. And that's kind of where that paper is. Now, this paper will be appearing in IGMEST. It's for the special edition for the Delta conference that's coming up next month. So it should be available online soon, and I can let people have a copy once I get it back from the relevant place. How are we going for time? All right.
It's
3:30. I mean, has anyone got any questions about that? I'm happy to talk about it, but otherwise I can also go back to this one that I should have brought up second. But are there any questions or comments? Anita, if you're still there, do you have any comments on the...
Thanks, Don. If I can just chip in quickly, it was useful to be reminded of our work. So I would say one of the sort of discussion points is about whether a test should be a placement test or just a diagnostic test. And certainly Alison, who's got the most experience in this, they have only been using it as a guide to students, and the students can still say, well, thank you for letting me know I've got a good chance of failing, but I'm going to take the course anyway. And I think she's been grappling with the idea of, is it sort of ethical to even allow a student to take a course when they have such a low probability of passing? At the same time, you know, do you want to be too much of a gatekeeper when a student might have had a gap year and they might well be fine? So we're sort of trying to predict the future, and there are a lot of variables. But certainly Alison's got a lot of statistics behind it all. I really like the point earlier about, you know, you can know something and still get it wrong. So it is a weakness of this kind of testing that unless you do let people take similar questions again and again, you may be picking up false positives, saying you don't have this concept. Actually, they do know it, but they've made a careless mistake. And the only way around that is to make them do more and more questions. But the idea is to try and limit the time that they spend in through the diagnostic test. But anyway, thank you, Don.
Thanks, Anita. Thanks for dropping in.
Yeah, I think following on from that ethics question, I can imagine that in the US this becomes a really big deal where the courses can cost a lot of money. So, I mean, I think Australia is sort of tending towards that as well now, that like it's becoming more and more expensive to take a class. So,
because in Australia a lot of it's hidden, because if it's covered by HECS, then students are building up these debts repeating courses, and they don't really realise that they've got them until they can't get a mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I think this question of, is it ethical to allow the students to take a course which, you know, we're pretty convinced they'll fail? I can imagine that starts when you start worrying about these like consequences for the students later on in life. I can see that becomes a question. Should we allow them to or not? Yeah.
Mary, you were going to...
Well, I had two questions, but just on that line, at UTS we have a thing called the census date.
Yeah,
we probably have that.
We have it, yeah.
But we also have a requirement that every subject must have a significant assessment item that's marked and returned before census date, and that is meant to give the student a chance to withdraw without academic or financial penalty. I don't know if you have something.
We do.
Yeah.
For a lot of our first year courses, we consider like the weekly tasks that students are doing by themselves and submitting that assessment because our terms are so short. So I don't know if it's necessary, it still then relies on the student to say,
Right.
oh, well, I didn't do so well here, but I know I can do it then, so
Ah,
it's just.
yeah.
Right,
It's
yeah,
the same thing.
yeah. And then my second question was, or comment, what a good idea to have 4 different institutions involved, because you'll get a lot of compare and contrast and things like that.
Well, this paper came out of, we organised a conference in Cape Town in February, the four continents diagnostic test conference, which we're going to have the second one of next year. So hopefully we'll get a few more people coming along. And we're trying to find someone from at least a 5th or a 6th continent to join us. But yeah. Sorry?
Why not 7?
Why not 7? There's not too many in Antarctica that I think are teaching. So that's where this paper came from, and yeah, the making these comparisons, I think, is valuable, and that's really where this part is going. So these are some discussions that we've had since the paper got accepted. So again, I've talked about this already, and it was covered in the paper.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
So I used to run the maths component of our university prep program, and I think this sort of thing would be really useful for those students who sort of run the gamut from, you know, having just finished high school, not quite getting the ATAR they need, to people who haven't touched maths in 10 years. And I think it's not a question of allowing or disallowing in most cases, but would be really helpful for them to see those gaps, because the targeted approach would help them soar. I wonder if you've spoken to that.
Well, there are people from that program who are on the numeracy working group, so we're talking to them as well. Yeah. So from going on from that, because we're seeing such similarities across the world, our vision, I guess, is for this dual purpose tool, which would be an international diagnostic test, which could be both a diagnostic and support tool, as we just talked about, but could also provide an international benchmarking strategy, similar to PISA and TIMS and those sort of things, but at the first year university level.
Right.
So, I mean, it's something that we're thinking about. It's something that we've talked about. It would help to address some of these challenges, which I think we can probably all relate to. Yeah, and I mean, you know, the weak foundations are across the board. Algebra, functions, data interpretation, problem solving skills are all the things that we all have issues with. So it would be good to be able to benchmark that at an international level. So this isn't going to work for 2026, but this is a sort of plan of what we might think about doing, trying to find a couple of institutions in each country who'd be prepared to look at using a common or almost common diagnostic test. Talking to some people who might be able to build a test like that for us at scale. I mean, numbers is great, but I don't know how well that would work if we were doing it internationally. The focus areas, what I just mentioned, are the areas that certainly are common. And then we need to do some assessment of that pre and post assessment, particularly post assessment, to see how the students are doing. You know, to evaluate the diagnostic test, is it actually measuring what we hope it is? And collecting data to help develop it further. So they're the key competencies that we're looking at. And a sort of long-term vision that perhaps this could lead to.
I mean, it could be also interesting if you're finding that in all of the countries, it's the same things that are missing, that it becomes a sort of pointer to school systems. Of, here are the things that, you know, we were kind of expecting from the students, and this is what's missing just across the board. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, so that's the gist of what we've been doing. As I said, we're planning to have another conference. I think it's the 10th of February. Are you still there, Anita? Is it February 10th?
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Yes.
You're saying yes?
It's a Tuesday. The closest Tuesday to the 10th of February. Yeah.
I mean, if we get enough people, we might extend it to the Wednesday as well. It'd be great to have some more people involved in that and planning this whole program.
Whereabouts is that going to be?
Cape Town, University of Cape Town. It's about the same distance for Alison, Anthony, and myself, and we all like South Africa, so it's a good place to, and it's a cheap place to visit, relatively. It will probably have a hybrid component as well if you can't get there. If anybody's got some
Just be back from Ireland at the time.
come via South Africa.
You mentioned, it'd be nice to have this running internationally. Then you would run into issues with user data is being stored. Like it's like that we stored in each country individually, I imagine.
Yeah, well, that's going to be one of the issues that we'd have to address. I mean, it would have to be aggregated somewhere for us to be able to do the comparisons, and that is probably going to be a big problem, particularly given the data privacy laws in the US and the EU
And Canada.
and
we weren't allowed to have any data outside of Canada, like the state the province that we were living in. We couldn't have data about our students.
Well, I know with the EU data privacy means that the lecturers can't get data on their own students. Because I know I've talked to Anthony about this, and he can't get a report on what his students have done, or what their level of maths is from their high school exams. So yeah, that's going to be something that we have to deal with.
I mean, you say a common platform before. Is that like a common platform or common framework? Like, is it you actually want the same software? Or
well, ideally, common platform, the same software. There's a couple of things out there that could probably do it. Alex BPL is one, and Bolster Academy is a group in Holland that have done something. Yeah. So those are things that we're thinking of investigating.
What about Khan Academy?
Don't know. I haven't really looked at that as a testing platform. Would it work that way?
I think they're big enough now to do all kinds of things.
Okay.
And they are definitely. I've heard Sal Khan speak at the last two EduTech conferences here in Australia, and he's very keen on the Khan Academy ethos, which is maths for everybody at no cost. You know, it's not commercial. It's not out to make money. It's out to teach, and there might be some benefit there.
That's another one to throw into the pot. Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, I guess it's also like this idea of having a global standard could be difficult given, like I guess my husband went to the University of Hong Kong as an undergrad, and he said that just the level that the students were at compared to what he had growing up in Europe was just unbelievable, and it took him a year to catch up just to the students. So.
I mean, from what I gather, the American system, a lot of schools wouldn't go to do calculus in high school at the high school level. So,
I guess I don't know. I feel like everybody in the US does so much more calculus than we do here that it's yeah, I guess I'm not sure what the high school curriculum.
Because the impression that I've got from Alison is that most students that are coming into university, because it's a more liberal arts degree anyway, most students have to do some maths, and the majority are going into either algebra or pre-calc courses, not straight into something that's calculus.
Yeah, I think my experience was maybe a bit skewed because it's like the Ivy League thing. So all the students had already done AP something like that, and so they all had done calculus before they'd come. So I'm not sure what it's like at maybe like the average, like maybe public state university or something.
Yeah, but there would still be a core. I mean, in Australia, we would probably want to test for calculus, but it may not be part of the core that you tested at internationally. Those areas that I mentioned back here would possibly be the core of the international part, and then each country might add on their own, or each institution add on their own questions.
That's a good idea, so it's customizable.
Yeah.
I mean, do you also have plans to have like a report for maybe lecturers of first year classes? Because I think we had this conversation maybe last time of who are our students? Do we know who they are? And especially when you're teaching hundreds of students, like how can you know what they're ready for? And then if you have this kind of diagnostic tool where you give a report of that too.
Yeah, that would certainly be part of the process for each institute, or for here, yes, I would think so. In terms of that, again, that's something else that Jim and I have been doing for the numeracy working group. We got data for maths-based maths courses, not just from the school, for the last 10 years, including a lot of demographic data, and we've been analysing that, looking at backgrounds, pass rates for all sorts of different courses. We might be able to talk about that at some stage too.
Yeah.
I can add something about that. At our university in Cape Town, we now have statistics on the students in your actual class, as well as the performance, the historic performance of students in your course, available at the beginning of your course. So you can see this project started as sort of addressing courses. They call them courses impeding graduation. The ones with a high failure rate, SIGs, so that they give you great demographics, saying who are the students in your course demographically who have had better success and worse success in this course, and then for some courses some closer analysis. So it would be wonderful to be able to have that kind of sort of live data as you're going on. So we don't have that in that format so much from our national benchmark tests, because not everyone does them, but that gives you, that's the closest we've got to a good diagnostic test at the moment. But my concern is also, like, once you've done the diagnosis, I mean, we already know that a lot of students have they're underprepared in a lot of areas, but then it's a bit of a so what. So a student in their year before high school will do this diagnostic test, this national benchmark test, but then there's no follow-up sort of suggestions of, and this is how to improve on these areas where, you know, we can show you you're underprepared on. And when they come to university, there's not really enough time. So having that time before they actually start is sort of, it seems like the only space that we've got to try and give them that boost before they have the sort of first year shock of thinking they're going to have so much time spare with fewer subjects than they've been doing in high school, and then they realize it's not the case.
I think that's one of the things that we're looking at here is having that support there for once the students have done the test, to have the resources for them to build up to what they want for the course that they want to take. But yeah, that's difficult if they're doing it a week before they start.
And in a 9-week course.
Yes, yes.
This was a bit pie in the sky, given that we're talking about.
So was that. So
I was just thinking, like David already mentioned, that there's the issue of consistency in terms of like students make silly mistakes, and the software may not necessarily forgive such mistakes, but I was wondering how well this might be extended to additional further assessment. Further down the track, so maybe final exams might start to like use this sort of like knowledge matrix technology.
Yeah,
That's already in the pipeline.
it's interesting for students, so.
Yeah, we're looking at that for Math 1011 when it gets rewritten for next year.
Yeah, the final exam is
a diagnostic or possibly a mastery. We haven't decided yet what the best approach is. But I'm using something more like this.
So I wasn't like done to explain the difference between diagnostic and mastery. Did you?
I didn't. I haven't today. So the diagnostic test is that it diagnoses where you are. If you can't do a question, then it won't ask you anything harder than it. If you can do it, it won't ask you anything easier. In the mastery mode, and the numbers has both modes, the test will keep giving you questions back until you get them right. So it'll take you through the whole knowledge map, and make sure that you can answer everything.
okay.
I think someone would like to do a lingo approach.
Yeah.
It'll come.
Yeah, that was the first thing that sprung to mind actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking that like if we were going to like try and use this in final exams or something, we need to find some way to like quantify how much students sort of like if a student gets a question wrong and it's a basic question, then presumably they're not going to be asked any more of the more advanced questions, but at the same time they might get a bunch of easy questions, get all of them right, but you would expect that they would get a lower mark than a student who gets more advanced questions and gets a higher proportion of them wrong.
Yeah, so there's other approaches to traversing this knowledge map. At the moment, we're saying it's either a 0 or a 1. You can assign probabilities to the nodes based on the answers to given questions. So rather than saying, okay, you got this wrong, so you're not going to be able to do anything harder, you reduce the probability of a student being able to do that, but you could still potentially ask the question unless the probability drops below some threshold.
You also have the option of having it tell you you've got this question wrong, do you want another go at it? Yeah. So it's not like, 6 + 4 and I put in 13, right, that's it, you can't add. It can say, that's not right, would you like to try this question again? I can go yes or no.
Now, the way it works out of the box with numbers is you get 3 retries over the course of the test. Okay. So not per question, but over the course of the test. But that's programmable. You can change that number.
Because your 3 lives is the way that.
3 lives is it's gaming.
One thing you mentioned a mark from the final exam, at least for the 1011s, right? The 1011. That one's going to be pass fail.
Yeah, so it makes sense for.
Yeah, I think the hope. My understanding is the hope is that when they work out their boundary in the knowledge map, they have to come back, they have to go away, and then get the rest later. So it's you really do need to master it up to a certain level, master the knowledge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Don. That was really interesting. I think we've all got a lot to think about. Yeah. So we've so thanks for that, Don. And I might get you to send us the slides if that's all right, and I'll share those in an email to everyone. And I think I should have written this. Scott, are you speaking at our next? I put you down.
Week 6,
yeah, in week 6. So in 2 weeks' time, Scott will be telling us about some things. So thanks everyone for coming, and I'll send out an email with updates and Don's slides.
Okay, thanks. Once the paper's out, I'll send that around.
Oh yeah, great. That would be great too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I think you said about the test going out internationally.